Thank you so much for doing this. And I
Thank
want
you.
to, well, of course. You know what? We have such a great network of people who just know exactly how to talk to educators and leaders just to help them with these behavior solutions that we're desperately needing here. So, everyone, just so you know about Allyson, so she's an educational leader and author, award-winning school leader for nearly 20 years, TEDx speaker. I mean, you have several books, right? Like there's bestseller books too. What makes a great principal, lead with collaboration, leading the whole teacher, and the path to serendipity. Oh my, truly tons of stuff you have to offer. So, Allyson, I'm going to start off like this. I would love to know that I want to know your vision about being proactive rather than reactive when it comes to behavior. I know you emphasize that a lot. So, what are some strategies that educators can just go use like tomorrow to start with this, like to prevent those issues?
Right, right. I'm sure, I wish I could have heard all of the guest speakers, but I'm sure that we have heard a lot about like self-regulation, right? Making sure that we are in the headspace and able to deal with the additional stress of escalating behavior, which is so important. And one of the things that I did as a principal, not because I had a brilliant idea, but because of absolute necessity, was to create like a crisis response on call schedule. So I was heading to a state conference. I was going to be gone for like 4 days for my school, maybe three, something like that. Felt like forever. And we had several students who, every day were needing the additional support because of behavior crisis happening. And of course, who's running to support the student, support the teachers? Like it's me, right? And this idea of me being out of the building and all of these things still happening was scary. It was scary for me, and it was scary for teachers. And so what we did is we created a schedule where in the morning we had someone who could be on call, so wasn't responsible for a group of students. So anybody who had the skill, the willingness, and could be on call was on call, and we just separated it morning and afternoon for every day of that I was going to be gone. And like once we did that, like we never stopped. We continued doing that because what we recognized is that we each have like this different skill set and we each relate to students in different ways. And when I'm running around all the time, like I'm not regulated. Like I don't, I run out of patience. Like my window of stress tolerance is full and it's about to burst and I'm about to lose it. When it's always me, or it's always the VP, or it's always the social worker. But when we share that like responsibility and honestly like privilege of supporting our students who need us the most, then we have the fuel and the resources within in order to be able to provide that support that not only does the student need, but we know that the educators who are around the students who are around the student, the educators who are around the student also need that additional level of support. And Charlie, you can stop me if you want, but the other piece is just creating systems, as much predictability within the school setting as possible. And I'm sure this was like a theme of what you're talking about, like with support in the classroom. But if we can create as much predictability as possible, we can deal with those unpredictable things that happen on a daily basis often. But it just, we have the energy. But when we're like scrambling for the things that we know are going to happen every single day, like, recess duty coverage or, whatever the case is whatever the case is, students are going to need support. Like that's why they need adults in the building. Like that's just a reality and they need more support than ever. So how can we create systems so that we have the energy and the fuel to be able to give them what they need, but also that give us that time, space, headspace, heart to deal with those unpredictable things that happen all the time.
All right, I'm going to ask you a question now, Allison. It's good to see you, my friend.
Hi.
Well, you were on my podcast and we talked about like student behavior, restorative practices. I mean, we like went through the whole gamut, and you've been on my show a couple times, and I always love having you on as a guest. But you talked a lot about like building a healthy, authentic relationship with students, and I'm curious if you wouldn't mind sharing like what that truly looks like for an educator and student relationship, because obviously that's going to be the basis for helping that student throughout the year.
Right, right. Okay. So I don't want to sound dumb when I'm saying this, but like first you need to actually care for them
Mhm.
and actually like them. Like I was talking to a colleague who is running a dear colleague who runs a before and after school program. And actually my son was in the before and after school program. And my son said to me about this one person who was working there of like, Mom, does she even like kids? And I'm like, I actually don't know. And so I said to my colleague, I'm like, did you ask that like in your interview questions? Like, do you like kids? And my colleague, she said, I'm adding it now. I didn't ask it before, but I mean, kids can sniff out like when we're not authentic with them, when we're not being real with them. And I was so fortunate to be trained in William Glasser's choice theory early in my educational career. So, I got out of student teaching and I thought like I knew it all. I was ready to roll. Like I had my apple chart on the board with the red and the yellow, or the red, green, yellow, whatever, all the colors. And all I had to do was like move toward the apple chart, and like students would like straighten up because they didn't want to have to stay in for the 5 minutes of recess. But when I started working at a William Glasser Choice Theory School, like we didn't rely on those external controls. What we relied on is creating a need satisfying environment where students can meet their needs within the functions of what we're asking them to do rather than work against the functions of the classroom. And that created this opportunity to develop relationships that just went so beyond what I thought they could be in the classroom. Because it wasn't this like, I'm going to control you or I'm going to manipulate you so that you do what I want. It's that I'm going to create an environment that is going to help you thrive. And if you have a challenge, we're going to step aside. We're going to talk through it. We're going to problem solve together, and then we'll get right back into the learning environment. And I think that's, it's not just true for students, but we need to create need satisfying work environments for teachers so that they're able to do their best work within the functions of what we're asking them to do.
And that's so important because when there is a breakdown and when you consider the processes and you consider putting things into place, there is going to be a breakdown. And so I know you're really good about restorative practice as a solution to repairing what has gone wrong. Can you tell people how you use that, like in what we can be doing in daily routines so it doesn't feel overwhelming using restorative practice?
Right, right, yes. Um, it's so interesting too as an element. So I was a principal of all levels, but as an elementary principal, like you, I stopped pursuing the truth, which sounds weird, but the truth is our perception. So like I would work with teachers or educators who are like hardcore of like, no, you are lying. This is actually what happened on the playground. But I think we have to first, within restorative practices, right? We first have to value perception and understand that like your truth is your truth. But one of the things I had in one of my last years as a principal, I had a student who is he was in young fives and then I think kindergarten my last year there, and he really struggled just to behavior wise, had some aggression, and he was one of those kids that like you just like wouldn't look at you like just there he really struggled to engage. So there wasn't like this reciprocal relationship where, we have those kids like there's not much that they're giving back. So it's hard to develop a relationship. And one strategy that I used, sometimes the simplest things work, right? Like, so when he was dysregulated and needed some help, like you kneel down, like I would put my hands out and invite him to put his hands on my hands. And I say to him every single time, so this was predictable, right? I'd say, I will always help you. How can I help you right now? Because help sometimes is facing consequences. and like understanding the consequences of our behavior. Help is helping students go back and repair the damage that was caused by the behavior that they had. So like our restorative practices went like we would have students kind of write about what happened, and we would have them write a plan for like, okay, so you tell us what happened, but then also think about what repairs like need to be made. Like, what could you do? And they need help with that, right? Like they can't like come up with those ideas on their own. And otherwise they're like, okay, I'm gonna draw a picture for, Miss Sally every single time. Like, well, okay, let's think about and just like talking them through that process and helping them think about how to reconnect, whether it is with an adult or with another student. The other thing that I was taught in choice theory is like we didn't force apologies. That we talked about we don't want false apologies. We want to repair the relationship and then make a plan for not having this happen again. So, how can we support students with that?
Awesome. All right. So Jimmy Costas was on right before you. He was talking about how so many educators feel pressed for time and that we're all having to go like a million miles an hour and we all are feeling it. So as a leader, how did you help your staff balance that curriculum demand, but also still making space for that building relationship component that we just talked about, and also if they had to have some, restorative conversations?
I love this question because over the course of the past few years, like, so this is my fourth school year of traveling full time and like working with educators across the country. And one of the biggest gifts of what I get to do is I get to go to the same schools over and over again. So I get to visit them
Awesome.
monthly. I'm developing relationships. There's some schools that I've been working with for 4 years. Like this is my fourth year working with them. So I get to see like the progress, and it's just such a joy to build those relationships. But over the course of the past year, I was able to work with the district to identify teachers who are getting exceptional results. And when I say exceptional results, I am talking about the state assessment, right? But in particular, it's not just the state assessment results, but when you walk into their classrooms, you see students with a deep level engagement, like an enthusiasm for learning. And like we're not like test results isn't the be all end all, but we want our students to be successful academically. That's our job. That's what we're here for. And like one of the best ways to support students behaviorally is to help them be successful in school. Like we know that they act out when they're not feeling successful. So I was talking with one particular teacher, and she is getting like 60% proficiency on the California State Assessment. It's called the CASP. When the school itself is like 15 to 20% proficiency. Like that is remarkable. And of course, I say to the teacher, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "Well, what I do might not work for everyone." I'm like, no, because if it's working in your classroom with these same students who are in the classroom next door, and year after year after year with the same schedule, the same curriculum materials, the same PD, it's going to work in all of these classrooms. It might look a little different, but it's going to work. So we're way too humble sometimes as educators. And then I was like, "Okay, so what are you doing?" And she's like, "Well, I'm just like using the performance tasks from our reading anthology." I'm like, "No, you're not. Everybody's using them and they're not getting the same results as you are. So what are you doing?" And it was just interesting to talk with her about like the different components, like how she helps students feel motivated and invested in their own learning, and how she supports them if there is a behavior challenge, how she interacts with families and works with families. Every time I talk to a teacher who gets these exceptional results, I tell you they cry because they believe in their students so much. But she said she has great relationships with her students. Like everybody wants to be in her class. And she said to me, "But I'm not buddies with my students. And I might not even know everything that they're interested in. But what I do is I get them interested in the learning we're doing. I get them invested in their own success because they know what success looks like. They know I believe in them and they know they can get there." So, of course, we were using ChatGPT and we're like, "Okay, what do we call that?" Because we identified like these 4 quadrants of student success in our classroom. One was clarity, teacher clarity. And that's on like what's expected of students, where are students right now? Students understand what's expected of them. Another is like cognitive engagement and ownership of the learning. And then the structures of the classroom, that is a very predictable environment. They know where to get supplies. They know how to interact with each other. And then the fourth thing is the relationship thing. And she's like, we're like, how do we describe what you just said? So we asked ChatGPT, and ChatGPT told us relational teaching. And I was like, oh, we both were like, yes, like it's integrating them, right? Like, and we learn SEL best by discovery. So if we can learn SEL through all of the other content we're learning and integrate them, it's actually going to last longer than these standalone lessons that we're delivering. And I can tell by the look on your face, Charlie, and that I'm like preaching to the choir right now.
Yeah, I love it. Well, you know that is so important because we always talk about this, the SEL and that social emotional learning. If some of you aren't sure of that acronym, because there's so many acronyms, but it is about teaching the skills that will help them be successful academically. Because we do have to have, and you know this, that's why we're all here. We all know that. That's why we're here. And sometimes we get stuck on the how and the why and all of that. So we can give you the neurological stuff. We can tell you the why, but the how is people like, what do we do? So I'd love for you to tell a story and give us some kind of like anecdote, like or something where the restorative practice or things that you're talking about now or that SEL stuff shifted a student's trajectory, like the whole trajectory or changed the relationship dynamic in a really powerful way.
Okay. So one of my favorite stories is about, well, okay, I'll tell a story that happened that came to light just recently because I got a message in Facebook Messenger that said, "Hey, guess what? You made a powerful impact on my life." This was like I took a snapshot of it. So it's like July 25th, this past summer. And I'm like, okay. Like I get a lot of, I mean, we get a lot of spam and stuff in our Facebook Messenger or Instagram. So it seemed real because of course I make positive impacts on people's life. No, I'm just kidding. But I thought, okay, it'd be awesome if this was real. So who is this? And I pressed the profile of the person and like it was actually nobody's name. It was like Mayberry, some I don't know, it was just something that like wasn't a name. And so I'm like, okay, let me like look back at pictures. And they're like sharing like tons of memes. And so finally I got to a picture of this person and I'm like, I know exactly who that is. And so I messaged her back and I said, guess what? You made a big impact on me. Because I could like recognize like first name, last name. I could picture times we were together. And then she messaged back and she said, I know I struggled a lot. And this was when I was a high school principal. And she said, but what I remember the most is that the kindness, generosity, and compassion you showed. And you know what that looked like on a day-to-day basis? It looked like me taking a walk with her at lunch. Like that's what she needed every single day. And I'll tell you, like I get tears in my eyes thinking about it because the days I was too busy to take a walk with her, like she made it known to the school. Like I didn't get what I needed attention wise. So I'm going to make sure I get some attention. I'm going to stir up this school a little bit to get what I need. And like just provide, I mean, it was awesome because I got some exercise in the middle of the school day. I got to connect with her, but also it just helped her access the learning she was there for. And it was like 15 minutes out of every single day. And then obviously it had a profound impact on her and a profound impact on me. But we could talk through the challenges she was having, and those things go so much better if students are doing something rather than just sitting there in the office with their arms crossed, having spent, 10 minutes thinking about how awful life is. So if we get them, doing something, it's so much more effective.
Yeah, I love that so much, Allison. All right, I want to throw in a free resource, and I'm going to do this also where you're going to be able to share a little bit about this self-reflection guide. But I know that Charlie just put in the chat. If you have any questions for Allison, we want to make sure that we have that opportunity for you to put that in the chat, and then we can ask her with the last few minutes that we've got. But right now, will you just share a little bit about the free resource that folks can get? It's a self-reflection guide for the 6 pillars of leading the whole teacher.
I love that you refresh my memory because you know I'm like running around. So
I
I
gotcha.
I thought that was what it was. But so I have a piece of work and it resulted in a book that is called Leading the Whole Teacher. And it's work that I did. It was actually like a couple years pre-pandemic and then during the pandemic and post-pandemic. So it was just a really interesting time to dive into research on how to create need-satisfying work environments for teachers and staff. So leading the whole teacher is just surrounded around the idea of if we provide a work environment that helps staff feel fulfilled in these six pillars, then they're going to be able to do their best work. Like when teachers thrive, students thrive. We know that. When we feel strong and positive, like we feel like we can take on any challenge, we can conquer the world. It's when we feel weak and defeated that like even emailing back that parent who asked a simple question feels like, oh my gosh, I can't add one more thing to my day. So how can we create environments where teachers feel whole, seen, and valued, and then can do the same for students? So that self-reflection guide, it walks teachers through the six pillars and helps them identify their level of fulfillment in the school environment on a scale of 1 to 5, and then helps them identify strengths and areas for growth. I think one of the bravest things you can do as a school leader is do that together. Like I actually, if you want to email me, I have a tool, a slideshow, because I know principals ain't got time for like making stuff. So I make it for you. If I give you an idea, I'll make it for you. But I have a slideshow that walks staff through that process and gives them an opportunity to talk together about the pillars and what the strengths are, what the areas for growth are. And why I say it's a brave thing for school leaders is because, it's a reflection of, we feel like it's a reflection of our leadership, but we have to accept that this work as a leader is a team effort. Like sometimes we get this idea of like we have to be everything for everyone. And guess what? We can't. So it is a team effort to create a need satisfying environment because when I ask teachers, I ask them all the time, all over, what might make a teacher feel unsafe at school? And I ask them to respond in the form of a word cloud. And every single time I ask them, the biggest word in the middle, like the most responses, are interpersonal issues between teachers, between staff members,
Yeah.
like being judged, being bullied, being left out, being gossiped about. Like gossip often is the biggest word in the middle. And this is like, I asked this pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, like when school violence is right in our faces, like in the news, and teachers continually say, it's my neighbor. Like I can deal with this. I can support the student having crisis. I can understand that I don't have the answers right now, but they are out there and I can turn to people to help me. I can do all of that. I can take it on. But if I have you gossiping about me behind my back while I'm trying to do this heavy lift and this heavy work, I can't do that. That's too much. So that's like, okay, I'm on a little bit of a soapbox right now, but that's what that self-evaluation form is about how can we create environments where we support each other to do our best work.
Wow, it's such a needed resource. And that's what we're trying to do here, Allison. We're trying to make sure that everybody has a resource that they can use in different settings, but this is a great one. This is a self-reflection so that we can make sure we're showing up energized, right? Yeah, so there's some comments in here. That's really nice thing, a lot of nice things here. What's next? Okay, so Lainey wants to know what's next for you, Allison, what you working on?
Lainey might have had a preview, right? Like, yeah.
She set you
Um,
up.
I know, I know. So thank you, Lainey. So I do have a new book coming out. I love the title and because this is the work I do, right? Like I do professional development and coaching and collaboration work. That's my life. This book is called Less Talk, More Action. And it's about applying the concepts of action research to school improvement. Like, and when we look at in terms of like how to create need satisfying environments, how to implement restorative practices, it's this whole idea of try-in before buy-in. Like, we do not need to be salespeople and convince everyone that this is the right thing to do. We can say, hey, what's a challenge you're experiencing with student behavior in your classroom? Let's talk to our colleagues and find out something that's working in their classroom, and then let's try it and see how it works. Let's track the results, and then let's share that with each other. So I think it has huge power of, I was just reading, actually, it's right here, Michael Fullin's book, Coherence, and it's about using the group to change the group. It's like this grassroots school improvement efforts where we can take action right away in our classrooms and we can stop talking about things endlessly. Because if you know me, I'm also passionate about use of meeting time. And if we're not better at the end of a meeting than we were before a meeting, the meeting is a waste of time, and we waste a lot of time in schools. So we need to stop talking so much and just do some more.
Amen. All right. Well, a lot of folks are excited about the new book and that it's coming out soon. So that's awesome. And of course, I've been putting your website in the chat for folks. I also put your page with all of your many books that are fantastic. So folks need to go and grab those resources. But with that, I mean, Allyson, you're amazing. I know, you should receive more of those in your Facebook DMs as far as the impact that you're making, because you're fantastic. And we just really appreciate your time today.
Well, I appreciate being here and seeing so many brilliant educational leaders, and I'll make you all really jealous because I am having dinner with Lainey tonight.
What?
Oh,
I know.
Oh my goodness. We're jealous. We're jealous.
We just saw Lainey, but we are still very jealous.
Yeah. Well, I thought you'd be jealous because you want to have dinner with me.
We do.
Never mind. Okay. I know you're more popular, lady. Okay. Yes. Thank you.
It goes both ways.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Allyson. You're doing great
Great
work.
seeing you,
Truly.
Allyson.
Thank you.
Thank you.